welcome to join tonight's UIA online webinar. To join this UIA webinar, and then tonight the topic is our city inclusive. It is held by UIA Community Architecture and Human Rights Work Program, and then we are very delighted to have our Secretary General to give us a welcome greeting speech. Yeah, welcome, Roy.
Thank you, Yvonne, and thank you for all the work program of community architecture and human rights for bringing this very interesting topic and important topic. I would like to start by saying that these webinars that our work programs organize are very important because they are focusing on issues that have a relevance for a social or environmental relevance, and they come from very specific thematic points of view because that's how the work programs are organized, and so they create a certain kind of awareness and alert us to not only the profession but all the stakeholders into issues that are important and emerging. And so today's webinar on urban inclusion in innovation is a very interesting focus that it's great that we look into, because cities have become very powerful engines of social mobility, and especially for people from minority groups and people who have somehow are at the margins of society, and so this is becoming something very, very relevant, and creating certain cities are creating policies that allow for more opportunities and mobility and democracy among these marginal groups. And so we will be hearing from experts that are working at the intersection of policy design and community engagement, and this here has a lot of relevance because our profession can, in a way, have a huge contribution for improving, bringing more democracy and helping people who have who are not privileged in this context of the current situation. And so thank you all for joining this webinar. Thank you for the work program for bringing this into focus, and welcome to all participants. Thank you, Yvonne.
Yeah, thank you, Roy. Yeah, I have to introduce myself too. I'm the member of this work program, Yvonne, yeah, from Hong Kong. And right now I introduce and welcome our co-director for this program, architect Cassie. Yeah, and then he will actually this program co-chair with Sarah too, right? Yeah, welcome, Cassie.
Thank you, Yvonne. Good afternoon and good evening to all our friends joining us from around the world. On behalf of the work program, Community Architecture and Human Rights, it is my great pleasure to welcome you all to this international webinar titled, Is My City Inclusive? This is the first of the 4 webinars in a sequel focusing My City, which correlates with the SDG 11, aiming to make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. We are deeply honored to have with us a group of remarkable architects, planners, educators, and community voices as speakers today. The people who believe that cities are not just built, but lived, and that every citizen, regardless of background or ability, deserves a place in that living city. I'm immensely grateful to architect Rui Liao, Secretary General of UIA, for his gracious presence at this virtual event. The question we are asking today, is my city inclusive? Sounds simple, doesn't it? But in truth, it's a difficult one. It forces us to look beyond the skyline and the infrastructure, to ask how our cities feel, how they function, and who they truly serve. Inclusivity is not a decorative word. It is felt in the dignity of access, in the safety of public spaces, in whether a child can play, an elderly person can rest, or a woman can walk home without fear. In short, inclusivity is about whether a city truly cares for its people. As architects and urban designers, we sit at a powerful intersection between design and human experience. Every door we design, every street we align, every public bench we place, these are not neutral choices. They either invite or exclude. To practice community architecture is to take a moral position. It means listening before drawing. It means designing with, not just for people. It means resembling that every line on paper represents someone's future, someone's right to belong. When we speak of human rights in architecture, we are not venturing into politics. We are simply affirming that space itself is a right. The right to shelter, the right to access, the right to dignity. All around the world, cities are changing fast, pressured by migration, inequality, technology, and the climate crisis. In this new urban age, inclusivity is not a luxury, it is a survival strategy. A city that excludes will eventually collapse under its own divisions, but a city that includes, that listens to its people and learns from its mistakes will endure and even thrive. Today's speakers bring stories from very different contexts, from dense Asian neighborhoods to resilient African communities. Each story reminds us that inclusion has no single form, but it always begins with empathy. Before we begin, let me take a moment to thank everyone who made this event possible. To our guest speakers for sharing your time, experience, and insights. To our colleagues at UIA Secretariat for your constant support. And to the audience from across UIA regions and beyond, who has always been the inspirations for all our endeavors. And of course, my gratitude goes to my colleagues at the UIA Work Program, Community Architecture and Human Rights, especially to my co-director, Sarah, and to Yvonne, who is moderating the session tonight. Your tireless cooperation, energy, and dedication are the true foundations of this webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to Is My City Inclusive? Let's begin the journey towards cities of dignity, empathy, and belonging. Thank you. Over to you, Yvonne.
Thank you, Kazi. Let me introduce the first speaker from Hong Kong. It's architect Joseph Huang. I think it's not a stranger. He is the vice president of Rehabilitation International and also is the advisor of UIA Work Group of Architecture for All. For more information, I don't want to waste our time. And then, just go straight to Joseph. Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for that very wise word, Kazi. It's you put it in such a nutshell that I think this is what it's all about. And thank you, Rui, for supporting this particular work program. That is very simple. It seems like, what are we doing? Community architecture. And the other dimension is the human right aspects, the human aspect combining together. I think it's what architect is here to do. So without further ado, I try to get into my PowerPoint here. And I believe we have limited time. Okay, let me go to this. Okay, are you able to see it now, the full screen?
Yes.
And can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we
Thank you.
can see.
It seems like a very simple word, inclusive, as architect Kazi mentioned. I like to look at it from a different dimension. I mean, it's a very simple word, yet it includes so much. What does it mean, really, for a city to be inclusive? And I'm talking about Hong Kong. Some of you may have been to Hong Kong already, some of you have not. So I try to very briefly introduce what Hong Kong is all about and the context of which we're trying to be talking about. Inclusive built environment. We're talking about a physical environment that's going to be accessible, usable, barrier-free for people with diverse abilities. That's the key word, I think, diverse ability. This is inclusion, not just people who are young and fit, but different people with different abilities. And of course, it includes, I'm covering this evening, not only the physical environment, but also I'd like to cover transportation, the digital interfaces, and the social attitude, which it's all part of the inclusion, which is all part of the community architecture. And of course, we like to base it on universal design and equitable access aspect. And my question to ask myself is can a dense city like Hong Kong, which is very mountainous and with historical structure, be really inclusive? How can we get here? A few KPIs for my presentation this evening: international norms, compliance, the physical accessibility. I'm focusing just on major attractions as an example. And why is that, rather than, I think the other speaker will look at social housing and the other aspects of public spaces. I thought it's a good indicator of how the degree of inclusion Hong Kong is doing. If they can do good tourist attraction, which includes everybody, then I think we're halfway there. So I'm using that as a performance indicator. And we'll look at transportation, digital accessibility, and social and cultural dimension, and finally the regulatory background framework to that. Human rights, very much part of my work. In fact, it has to do with Convention of Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Of course, Article number 9 of CRPD basically says that states party, which are the country, shall take measures to ensure that persons with disabilities equal access to the physical environment, transportation, information communication technology in both the urban and rural areas. That is the norm we need to work towards. And Kazi already mentioned about the SDG Goal 11, that we need to make human settlements safe, inclusive, etc. Going towards our urban landscape of Hong Kong. For those who may not be familiar with Hong Kong, we have a population of about 7.5 million people and a very small landmass, just over 1,000 square kilometers. And the challenge for us is very mountainous. Those who have been here would know that it's got limited flat land. But technically, interestingly, the land use, the built-up area, is only 25% of the total landmass of the 1,100 square kilometer, built up only 25%. And for residential use, it's only 7%. So you can imagine how packed and compact our situation is. And aging population is like everywhere else. It's increasing. For us, we've got about 7.1% of the population of 7.5 million people are aging and with disabilities, almost 500,000 people with disabilities. In fact, you all know in Asia, Hong Kong is one of the tourism hubs, and we have something like more than 65 million people visiting Hong Kong annually. And of course, they come to Hong Kong and normally they go to Macau as well. So this is the frequency of visitors we have. Very quickly, the map of Hong Kong, you can see that's what it is. Up here, what I'm showing now is Shenzhen. That is the border, and that's already China. So the 1,100 square kilometer includes this part, the Lantau Island and the Hong Kong Island. And you can see the link to the airport. And of course, the bridge goes towards Zhuhai and Macau, where Rui is on the west side. Focusing more down onto it, you can see the built up areas and you can see the green area. So the built up area is basically along the coast. That's the Hong Kong harbor. East, west, very condensed and packed. Of course, the Kowloon Peninsula and parts of the New Territory. You can see the size of the reclaimed land for the airport. It's huge in terms of land mass. To the rest, it's almost the size of Kowloon Peninsula. That's what we have, in fact, to make things work in Hong Kong. Closer, that's the density and the view of this. The harbor, very much the CBD area, the Kowloon area with tunnels and ferries linking the two sides. And that's what it looks like from the peak area. You can see the harbor. You can see the density of the buildings. Everything is high rise. Very few places are sort of single story housing, and we don't have a suburbia. Even our suburbias are high rises. These are residential apartment blocks, and some of these high ones are office blocks. So it's a mix of mixed use development of residential and office and commercial development in Hong Kong. That's how it is. And infrastructure work, the red lines are the main railway system that connects the island to the New Territory right up to the border, and of course to the airport, the Lantau Express. Using as an indicator of as a sign of accessibility, just like to pick the very first one, Victoria Peak. That's what we have, the mountain on top. It's called Victoria Peak. For us to get there, there's a peak tram. The peak tram probably not fully wheelchair accessible. Okay, so it's already excluding some groups of people. You could take a taxi up there, but taxis are even less wheelchair accessible and it can be very costly. You can take an MTR there, and however, the peak tower itself is fairly accessible because it's a fairly new building. And when you get up there, you get a very nice view, and a lot of tourists and even the locals would take the peak tram to the peak tower. And then we have the harbor with the Star Ferry, which is fairly accessible, but on the other hand, it's only accessible on the lower deck. Lower deck used to be for the goods and services, whereas you pay a first class ticket if you like. You sit on the upper deck. People would sit on the upper deck, whereas the lower ones, that's where you take in the good old days, your chicken, your eggs, and the goods and services on the lower deck. So there's already some sort of discrimination, if you like, at that level. And the good thing about that is it's very cheap. It's very cheap. It's less than a quarter to $50 for a ticket to cross the harbor. Okay, that's how it is. That's what it looks like. That's what it looks like. The peak. The tram comes up here from down below the harbor. There's a peak tram that comes up, and that's the peak tower, and that's where the tourist comes up and admire the view of the harbor. And this is our Star Ferry, and that's with the backdrop of the Hong Kong CBD area. The peak tram is up here. That's the peak area, and it goes up the north, goes up the hill. So this is the background of what we're talking about. Okay. The other attraction we have is a Nong Ping, is a cable car, which is out at the New Territory. It's a cable car which has fairly good level entrance and boarding, and a space for even a larger wheelchair. The challenge of that is when you get up to the Nong Ping area, the Buddha, which is a big statue built up there, requires climbing up of about 260 odd steps, which for some wheelchair users, it's not accessible. You can see it from the bottom only. And the round trip for the cable car is affordable, yet on a costly side, 27 to 37 US dollars. And the other more accessible place is downtown Hong Kong, the IFC Mall, the rooftop area. It's fairly accessible. It's only on the level 4, and people can go up there. It's free of charge. That's accessible for everybody to use. And the other attraction we have is Temple Street Market. Temple Street is like in any other city, it would be considered it's a Chinatown of Hong Kong. It's it can be very crowded because it's got a lot of food markets and night markets and hawker stores. It can be difficult for navigation if it's very crowded for wheelchair users. And if you're visually impaired, you need some assistance to get around that way. But nonetheless, it's a nice tourist attraction. And there it is there, a cable car that takes you up from the bottom, a lantern up to the Buddha. That's a big Buddha. There are steps to get up there, and you can, people there, unfortunately, there's not a lift to get up to the Buddha. So people can only see it. Some people can see it from the bottom only. And this is the IFC where we can actually get a nice view of the harbour. To get up there, it's fairly accessible and it is free of charge. And at the bottom is our Temple Street night markets full of hawker stores and street market, etc. So these are accessible, and that's part of the things we use. The ongoing challenges for Hong Kong is that, as you say, we are built on a very steep site, and you can see some of the urban areas have fairly steep roads, and our footpaths are what we call step footpaths. They have steps, and if you're in a wheelchair, a baby pram, older person, it's not so easy to negotiate, and you're forced to basically walk up or down the road. And this is maybe most likely on the urban Hong Kong side. You can see these are historical streets, stone pavement streets, steps, pavement, and of course, the historical part of that is the stone paving, which is fine for tourists, able and easy to walk on. But if you're in a wheelchair or pushing baby prams, older persons, not so easy. So these are the difficulties we have, constraints that we have. And the other feature is what we call the Avenue of the Stars, and it's on the other side, on the peninsula, on the Kowloon side, where it's a waterfront section. People walk along the side, and apparently it's like the one in Hollywood. They've got stars, famous stars, put it on the pavement, and people can go have photos taken with the star's name on there. So in the evening, every evening there is this spectacular light show, and the tourists can actually see it for about 10 to 12 minutes, this light show on the Hong Kong Island side. So the Avenue of Star is accessible, it's easy to get to, and the good thing is the government has made attempts to improve this area because it's flat and it's easily made accessible and it's usable by everybody. Okay. Now I'd like to turn to the public transportation system. I think it's equally important in terms of an inclusive society and the rights of people of getting around. You can have very accessible public spaces, very accessible buildings, office blocks. If you can't get from A to B, I can't get from a home to my office, then it's useless. So accessible public transportation is very, very important. And I like to say that MTR system is very, very efficient. We have 167 stations built on those about 8 or 9 lines. 99 of those are heavy rail stations, with 68 of those as light rail stations. The fully accessible stations are installed with lifts and tactile guide paths for the blind, and there are level access mostly from the platform onto the car. And there are priority seatings for the elderly and people with disabilities and ladies, who are pregnant, etc. And there are visual and audible announcements to say the next station for the hearing impaired and the visually impaired. However, not all the stations are retrofitted with lifts. So maybe I know they're slowly doing, but unfortunately, some of the system is built on underground and they can't even find a spot to punch a hole through the buildings and find a spot at the ground level, street level for the lift. So that's an issue there. In terms of our public buses, we are fairly good. It's very economical. We operate something like 700 routes. Good thing is 100% of the 5,800 franchise buses are fully accessible. These are low floor buses, wheelchair accessible vehicles. They're fully accessible. I think it's something we can be really proud of. And there are reserved spaces for wheelchairs in the bus, and there are audible and visual announcements for the hearing impaired and visually impaired riders. So that's what it looks like, an MTR system. It's not as spacious as that. During peak hours, it's very, very congested. And that's the MTR system. And these are our double-decker bus system. They're fully accessible. They're low floor and kneeling wheelchair accessible buses. And these are our green green minibuses. Unfortunately, we have a lot of these. We have over 3,000 of these minibuses. Unfortunately, none of these minibuses are wheelchair accessible. So that's the next thing we need to work on, because that's quite a large number, over 3,000 green minibuses, convenient door to door, basically from many major roads, but unfortunately they're not accessible at the moment. Taxis, we have many taxis, over 18,000 taxis. However, only 4,700 of those are wheelchair accessible. That's only 26% of taxis are wheelchair accessible. Make a reference to London and New York. Their taxis are 100% wheelchair accessible. So what we call a London taxi and a New York taxis, they're 100% accessible. Yet for us, we're only 26%. So we have a long way to go in order to make that particular facility accessible for all. For specialized services, we have different types of services. The one that is run by an NGO is called the rehab bus. This bus at the bottom, it's run by a private NGO organization. We have over 200 buses, and they run on over 127 scheduled routes. And these are dollarized service, and you have to pay obviously to do that. But you basically, you could be sitting with 3 or 4 or 5 different people in a wheelchair, and it takes a bit more time to get from place to place. So rehab bus services, we have a number of those. Some initiatives from our transportation. We have what we call a certificate or restricted zone access. This certificate can be applied through the transport department for anyone with a disability. So if you have this particular certificate, you have a right to get on the taxi in what we call restricted zones. You know, double lines are restricted zones and no stopping zones. But if you're a wheelchair user or someone in need, quick access, with this certificate, taxi drivers will pick you up in those sort of non-stop zones. And of course, you must carry that with you. Otherwise, the taxi driver would get a traffic violation offense. Within the transportation system and public transport interchanges, we normally have tactile guide paths to guide visually impaired to navigate through stations. And for a taxi, which is quite unique in Hong Kong, is that on the door, on the passenger side door, we have braille and tactile number plates. So in fact, the vehicle's number plate, whatever that is, it's put on a little plate on the side of the door. So if any time the driver tried to cheat a person who's blind in a fare or other abusive things, that person can register, by touching the braille tactile information, they can find the information and they can report that to the transport department and say, this person has given me the wrong change, has been abusive, has not been cooperative. So this is a system we try to help to give our visually impaired blind riders a bit of dignity, of course, independence, and of course, equality in many ways. Our ferry service to outlying islands are low deck, have low deck accessibility, and they also have wheelchair parking spaces. And of course, sometimes they have toilets on those vessels as well. Limitations, I'll go very quickly through that. MTR is very crowded during peak hours. Buses also very crowded during peak hours. Specialized taxis, they're limited availability, as I said, only 26% are accessible, and the specialized taxis are even few of those, and they charge higher fares. Rehab bus is very few of those and require advanced booking. In terms of digital accessibility, we can have a very accessible environment, but if everything is going digital now, to make an order of food or getting airplane tickets, many things are done through digital applications. And our government has been applying the W3C codes at the level of AA standards. And there are certain things that the government website is able to be accessible more, the keypad access, the screen reader compatibility, etc. And we do have a web access guide provided for Hong Kong, special features that helps people, to navigate with text-based or a map-based interface. And unfortunately, that's the government sector. This web accessibility is not mandatory for a private sector. So if we don't have majority of the private enterprises do not have web access. Their website may not be accessible. So that's something we need to work on in the future, getting web access in the private sector. Some challenges in that way is that for the mobility impaired, they find it's difficult to move certain click certain things on the mouse. For the visually impaired, sometimes they have a problem navigating the website, government websites, and for the hearing impaired, sometimes the fonts are too small and the video quality may not be so good. So I think we very much need to work on that area for them. In terms of social dimension and cultural dimension, the difference is Hong Kong is very much an east-west location. The Western approach at the moment is very much a rights-based approach. The East is more collectivist approach. So what that means is the West is very much emphasized on individual independence, whereas Hong Kong relies on community support and a very strong helper system. What is this helper system? It's very unique to Hong Kong and maybe now to maybe Singapore and Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. But in fact, most families in Hong Kong employ domestic helpers, and the numbers are not small. It's over 360,000 helpers in Hong Kong for a household of 2.7 million. So most households would have at least one helper to help out, to take the children to school, to kindergarten, etc. So it's created this dependency and relying on its helpers for many, many things. In certain ways, it's not so good in my sense. It's substitute for accessibility accommodation. In fact, what it means is, the helper can help you go up those one step or two step. The helper can push you along the back way, if you like, and relying on that aspect rather than making the architects or the urban planners build something which is accessible for everybody, providing equal access for everybody. So that, in fact, has the downside is that it provides a substitute for them.
Hello, Joseph. Hello, Joseph.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
It seems.
Finishing up.
Yeah, you use a roundup version. Yeah. Okay.
And
Yeah.
social attitudes we need to change. All that. In terms of regulatory framework, we have rehabilitation program plans. We have web accessibility recognition schemes, etc. Frameworks. We all have different types of regulations and universal design guidelines. And the current limitation we need to look at. And there are also future opportunities we can learn from. Case studies, we can skip that. You can read that later on. And in terms of conclusion, we have strengths and weaknesses. Once again, we need to remove those weaknesses to make Hong Kong more equitable and more accessible for everybody. We need regulation enhancement. We need transportation solutions. We need to make accessible attractions and a cultural shift we need to look at. And I think I'll finish on that one. Okay, so thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Joseph. Yeah, regarding the Q&A, if any one would like to have a question to Joseph, there's a Q&A chat box. You can type there, and then after all the presentation done, we can respond as soon as possible. Okay. So right now we should introduce the second speaker. The name is Amo Tecker from Algeria. I'm sorry, yeah, may not be correct.
With Amal, AMAL, TERK.
Okay, yeah. She's an international expert and an architectural architectural heritage, practicing architects, right? And then also it means dedicate her work on combining creativity with technical accuracy, and her practices focus on architectural design, technical studies, and project management and real estate expert. So right now I'm pass the room to Taki.
Thank you.
Okay,
thank you very much for this presentation. Thank you for all. So I share my subject document. It's okay? You can see?
Waiting. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Now. Yes. Okay. Yeah. 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 You can put it in full screen. Yeah.
Yes, just a minute and presentation. All screen. I think.
It should be fine. Should be fine. You can go to okay, upper right. There's a box. You can put it in full screen. Yeah.
What?
Right. The red band at the upper top.
Okay, PDF. Presentation. Oui. Partager.
Yeah.
Yes.
And also at the bottom part. It's fine. Yeah. Maybe you can stop. Yeah.
Please wait just a minute. It's okay? You can
Yeah, we can see it. It's okay. Yeah.
Okay. So my subject today is my city resilient and inclusive in terms of housing for all? So when we examine the resilience and inclusiveness of housing in Algeria, focusing of its architectural and practical aspects, which are frequently overlooked, rapid urbanization in Algeria cities has altered housing patterns, prompting important inquiries regarding to quality and adaptability of housing. A resilient city can endure such as a natural disaster and demographic pressures, whereas an inclusive city addresses the needs of all its residents, including the elderly, families, and young people. Housing for everyone involves more than just mass construction. It requires the development of functional, human-centered spaces that are tailored to social realities. The reflection emphasizes the ability of contemporary architecture, ranging from standardized structures to informal housing, the foster genuine social inclusion and address to challenges of the future, such as urbanization, climate changes. So, we examine the resilience and inclusiveness of housing in Algeria, focusing on its architectural and practical aspects, which are frequently overlooked. Rapid, please, please, sorry, yeah. Wait a minute.
We can see it.
Wait
Yeah.
a minute, please. Yes.
Do you
So,
do you,
it's okay. It's okay. So,
do you
we must housing for everyone involves more than just mass construction. It requires the development of functional human-centered spaces. They are tailored to social realities, reflection of emphasis the ability of contemporary architecture, during from standardized structures to informal housing to foster and social. So. To understand the current state of resilience and inclusions, it's necessary to recall the historical evolution of housing in Algeria. First, we have the period prior to 1930. Urban planning and architecture were segregated and structured around important community. Lodging, which was characterized by a conventional urban planning, characterized by segregation, a local architecture enhanced by international influences, a city that is open yet characterized by divisions and a blend of local tradition and Ottoman influences. In this period, Algeria was a province of the Ottoman Empire. Major cities like Algiers, Constantine, or Tlemcen followed a massive Islamic urban model. This means a city center built around the main mosque, a center souk in this site. A center souk of marketplace and residential neighborhoods separated according to social and cultural groups. For example, a Jewish quarter, often called the Millah, a Christian and European quarter for foreign markets, and a Raisa reserved for specific families, tribe, or professional groups. This can be described as segregated urban planning, not imposed by a colonial power, but based in internal social and cultural dynamic. It follows each group to live according to its own rules and tradition. In second phase, we have a colonial area in 1830 and 1962. In this period, we have a dual urban planning, distinct division between well-equipped European neighborhoods, city center, waterfronts, and peripheral indigenous area, Kasbah, Medina. In this, it's center of column, and we have the peripheral indigenous area, Kasbah or Medina. Its example, Algiers. Second, we have in the colonial architecture, Osmanian, Neo-Maurits, and Art Deco styles, thoughtfully designed yet exclusive to select a few. Third, in indigenous community, overlooked and neglected. So, the city, in this period, we have we observe a distinct. We observe after the French conquest of Algeria in 1930, Algeria entered a new area that of colonization, which could last 132 years. France imposed not only its political power, but also a new organization of urban space, radically different from what had existed before. This referred to as dual urbanism, that's two cities within the same city, one modern European and well-equipped, and the other old, neglected, and reserved for the indigenous population. So, population. The European city is the modern, well-equipped, and expanded. From the early decades of colonization, French authorities transformed Algeria cities to suit their own needs and way of life. They built a new city center with wide and well-planned avenues, administrative buildings such as prefecture and counter houses, modern houses for settlers, public facilities, schools, hospitals, squares, and gardens. European districts were generally located in the city center. Along this coastline, well ventilated and highly developed. This zone were designed following the French Osmanian model with rational modern urban planning, often imposed without consideration for local culture. What about an indigenous community overlooked and neglected? At the same time, the old neighborhoods were Algerian lives, such as the Kasbah, Medina, or peripheral suburbs were gradually marginalized. Were poorly connected, under equipment, and often seen by colonial authorities and unhealthy or over dangerous. They received no urban planning. They received no urban planning. They received no urban planning of renovation except when they stood in the way of European expansion. As a result, indigenous population lived in very poor condition, facing overcrowding, lack of running water, little or not electricity, and no access to the modern public service. In this period, we have a model of city is born, like Diyar Mahsoul, and in a new image of a city, and about indigenous people, it's same time in shade towns began, and in this period, in period on colonial 1833 and 1962, we have the same times the shade towns began to emerge. So, in this period, example of Dar al-Mahsoul. Dar al-Mahsoul is a large housing project built between 1933 and 1955 in Algiers during the French colonial period, designed by architect Fernand Pouillon. It was perfect of colonial strategy to address housing shortage for the growing urban population, especially the indigenous Algerians. The project included two distinct sections: modern apartment for Europeans, well equipment and located on a neck ground, a simple housing for Algerians, placed lower down and less well deserved. Dar Mahsoul reflects the Juwaili city model of colonization, urban planning, segregated, unequal, and symbolic of the broader social and political division of the time. At the same moment, we have the emergence of the slums bidonville during the colonial period of Algeria. We closely linked it to rapid urbanization and the deep social inequalities. Starting in the 1940 and 1950, many rural Algerians immigrated to the cities, especially Algiers, in search of work and better living conditions. However, the colonial authorities did not provide adequate housing for the indigenous population. As a result, thousands of families were forced to settle in makeshift shelters, often built with scrap materials like metal sheets or wood. These are known as a bidonville. Lacked basic infrastructure, no clean water, no electricity, no sanitation. The ground of the slums reflected both the housing crisis and indiscriminatory urban policies of colonial rule. In the collective housing, at the same we have in 1958 we have a collective housing. Like example, Constantine plant and built in Oran in 1958, Medina Jadida district, downtown Oran. A collective housing under the Constantine plant refers to a major French government initiative launched in the mid-1950 to improve living conditions in Algeria by building a modern housing for the indigenous population. In the period post-independent area into 1962 and 1980, we have a quantitative reaction to the crisis. Its independence, so objective is to address the massive housing shortage after independence. Construction of large housing complexes, public housing projects provides a Sovietic styles or modernist models standardized located on the outskirts. It was functional architecture, but poorly adapted to the climate, culture, or community life. Block styles urban planning like a functional diversity housing without facilities. We have also a mass urban housing, a standardization, rapid construction, large housing complexes in the outskirts. Example, the zone of Atmania in 1976 and the zone de Skikda in 1978 in Oran. In this period, the inclusive and a resilient city is a concept that is still development at this moment. A history at this moment in emerging in period of 2000, we have we assist of emerging urban centers, and it's present we are witnessing combining housing complexes where commercial activities, service, and residence coexist with them to the same building. It's an evolution of a notion of a house. Same building. Gardens of the type housing, look, we have a residence and we have in activities and services of the housing. Sorry. So, whether in garden of the type housing, whether intended for middle become or higher standards residents. These shared activities promote a social mixing and encourage a certain level of neighborhood security. So, what's the description of the prevailing architectural styles of residential building in Algeria? So we have four models of housing in this period. We have a long national comfortable housing complexes, a recent ADL LPP structures, a peripheral social housing, and we have an irregulated urban development and self-building. For the first one, it's present a long linear blocks of 4 and 2 stories, modular and repetitive design, derived from modernist urbanism. Majority of construction between the 1970 and 1980. Low quality, it's characterized by a low quality of material and finishes, an unused space between building with a few outdoor amenities. In second, building from 5 and 2 stories, often located in urban outskirts, uniform facade, industrialized materials, prefabricated concrete plaster. It's standardized apartment layout, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, but little room for personalization. Common issues, poor orientation, insufficient ventilation, overcrowding. In peripheral social housing in the Sahara, the social housing programs in the Sahara aim to provide affordable and durable housing adapting to the region's harsh deserts, climate, and unique cultural context. These projects typically feature buildings constructed with the local materials such as adobe and stone, which offer natural insulation against extreme temperature. Architecturally, the housing designs incorporated in traditional Sahara, in this picture, elements such as thin walls, flat roofs, and shaded outdoor spaces to improve comfort and energy efficiency. Layout often supports extended family living and community interaction, reflecting local social structures.
Hey, Tucker.
Yes?
Yeah, I think you need to speed up, maybe 3 more minutes. Yeah, thank you.
But defined social inclusion throughout case study. A new neighborhood with the schools, a middle schools, a health center, a market, etc. A project that integrate social infrastructure into urban planning. So, what defined resilience to challenges based on case of study? So, in this period, we have 90% of STEM towns were eradicated across the country. It's in between, Algiers had numerous STEM towns, especially in area like Al Harrach, Bab el Wad, Bir Khadem, and Kuba. These neighborhoods were marked by extreme poverty, lack of infrastructure, and poor living conditions. Starting in 2005, the government launched a large-scale national housing program to eradicate precarious housing. What about an historical architectural legacy? Casbah Mzab, cases, courtier residences, local research, sustainable bioclimatic design, community development comment, area cooperative approach, sustainable models tailored to the context to be resisted. So, towards an innovative architectural perspective, towards a new framework for balancing tradition and modernity, incorporate citizens into the design process, constructing with climate for the community and the future. And we have, in little comparison with the situation of housing in Algeria today. So, positive points, we have a political determination and constructed capacity, a negative form, we have uniform design, limited of resolution, absence of inclusion. In conclusion, a current Algerian architecture reflects a quantitative response, but it has not yet achieved a qualitative dimension. Problem particularly addressed, inclusion remain restricted, openness reflecting a modern Algerian architecture that is grounded, resilient, and inclusive. I open some recommendation and the review. What needs to be done for the city to be truly designed by its community, in institutionalize cities' participation in all urban development projects, create neighborhood committees and as spaces for dialogue between municipalities and residents, involve youth and women in local development decision-making, user transparency in public decision, projects display, participatory budgeting, and strengthen the role of local council as key intermediaries between the state and the population. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Taki. Yeah.
Sorry,
If any,
I have a lot of information, so I would like to share. It's impossible.
yeah, don't worry, don't worry. Yeah, if any audience would like to have the question, please also post in the Q&A box. Yeah, because of time. So right now we need to introduce the first speaker. Unfortunately, our first speaker, architect Dr. Lumber Mustafa from Egypt, has an urgent issue and cannot present in person, but she has a video, so I can right now share her video. Yeah.
Hello everyone, this is Lobna Mustafa and I am presenting today about creating socially inclusive public spaces. We'll go through different points including principles and strategies for designing inclusive public spaces and one of the most best practices. Urban inclusivity trends, understanding current urban trends and diversity challenges.
We can't not.
Wait a minute. Can you hear or see the PowerPoint? Because I received some writing to here, cannot read the PowerPoint. Is it okay? Can you see?
No, we can't see, Yvonne. We can't see the PowerPoint. We could
see
hear the
Oh,
sound,
okay.
but not the PowerPoint.
Let me
Yvonne,
try again. Sorry. Let me
share it
try.
again.
Share
Try
again.
sharing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello everyone. This
Yes,
is
you
Lubna
need to open the MP4.
about creating
It's
socially inclusive
already
public
MP4.
spaces.
Can you hear right now or see it?
We'll go through different points.
We can't see anything.
Okay,
think
okay.
we
I'll
can-
try. I'll try
We can
again. Yeah.
hear a little bit.
Okay, I can try again. Sorry.
Hello everyone.
How
is
about
Lubna
this time?
Mustafa, and I am presenting
Can you
today
see it?
about creating social.
We can see it. I think there is some audio going on, but that's too low. There's no video.
And the strategies for designing,
Okay, that's some problem. Then I need to try again. Really sorry about this.
We don't have the sound.
essential for architects. They must embrace their responsibility to. Hello everyone.
How about
This
this
is
one?
Lubna Mustafa.
It looks good this time.
It's good.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Socially
Okay,
inclusive
try
public
again.
spaces. We'll go through
It's
different
full screen
points,
and can
including,
hear the sound, right?
principles and
Thank
Yes.
you.
for designing,
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
inclusive public spaces, and one of the most best practices. Urban inclusivity trends. Understanding current urban trends and diversity challenges is essential for architects. They must embrace their responsibility to create an inclusive city, which isn't just easy to navigate, it is easy to belong. It is a place where design and humanity meet in everyday moments. Dimensions of urban inclusivity, as we can see, there is three dimensions: physical, cultural, and social. So what is social inclusion? Social inclusion in public spaces is essential for fostering community engagement and improving the overall quality of life. By designing environments that cater to diverse needs, we create welcoming spaces where individuals from all backgrounds can interact, participate, and thrive together in harmony. What is a socially inclusive public space? It is spaces that foster belonging, participation, and representation of all groups, encourage interaction among diverse users through shared activities, respond to gender, age, ethnicity, and cultural identity, offer safety, dignity, and accessibility for all, and enhancing societal well-being for every demographic. Why social inclusion matters? Because social inclusion helps fulfilling needs. Physical accessibility alone doesn't guarantee inclusivity. Respect the differences. Public spaces should reflect and celebrate culture and social diversity. Building belonging. Inclusive design promotes equity, belonging, and shared urban identity, promoting cohesion by providing a
You're
social
missing the slides, Yvonne.
Yes, something wrong. Yeah, sorry.
Successful inclusive space. It's a physical accessibility and safety, diversity of users and uses. Hello everyone.
Hello everyone.
This is Lubna Mustafa, and I am presenting today about creating socially inclusive public spaces. We'll go through different points, including principles and strategies for designing inclusive public spaces, and one of the most best.
Is it okay right now?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Understanding current urban trends and diversity challenges is essential for architects. They must embrace their responsibility to create an inclusive city, which isn't just easy to navigate, it is easy to belong. It is a place where design and humanity meet in everyday moments. Dimensions of urban inclusivity, as we can see, there is three dimensions, physical, cultural, and social. So what is social inclusion? Social inclusion in public spaces is essential for fostering community engagement and improving the overall quality of life. By designing environments that cater to diverse needs, we create welcoming spaces where individuals from all backgrounds can interact, participate, and thrive together in harmony. What is a socially inclusive public space? It is spaces that foster belonging, participation, and representation of all groups, encourage interaction among diverse users through shared activities, respond to gender, age, ethnicity, and cultural identity, offer safety, dignity, and accessibility for all, and enhancing societal well-being for every demographic. Why social inclusion matters? Because social inclusion helps fulfilling needs. Physical accessibility alone doesn't guarantee inclusivity. Respect the differences. Public spaces should reflect and celebrate culture and social diversity. Building belonging, inclusive design promotes equity, belonging, and shared urban identity, promoting cohesion by providing a social interaction environment. What makes a successful inclusive space? It's physical accessibility and safety, diversity of users and uses, culture resonances and expression, emotional comfort and sense of ownership, belonging, and engagement in shared spaces. Then we come to the principle for inclusive design. Designing for safety and comfort in environment, it's creating safe and welcoming environment which is essential for all demographic. Designing public spaces requires focus on key elements, including lighting, visibility, sight lines, seating, and accessible pathways. Ensuring comfort and security for all demographics creates a welcoming environment, fostering community engagement and social interaction in these inclusive spaces. As we can see in this photo, it is for a public space, whereas the part on the right is representing the missing element of feeling safety and comfort. While by adding the necessary elements of architectural design in the hub or on the public space on the left hand, you can see the difference it makes for the feeling of comfort for the users. Design for ownership and belonging. So what does it mean? For example, gender-sensitive layouts avoiding isolated zones, natural surveillance through active edges and mixed-use surroundings, inviting material seating the diversity and signage in multiple languages, lighting and visibility for perceived safety. So if you are willing to go through the design, the architecture design that takes into consideration providing social inclusivity. What are the main principles? There is so many decisions that the designer or the architect makes that affect this feeling of social inclusivity, like lighting for safety, playable landscape for children, flexible edges for informal gathering and vending, universal design for mobility and accessibility, celebrating diversity by representing all voices in design, ensure comfort, safety, and dignity for every user, activate space with programs, not just pavement, co-manage, including inclusion of extend beyond opening day actually, and measure success by belonging, not by beauty. Addressing diverse needs, it goes through many ways in the architecture design. We can see this when we addressing for women, safe routes and rest areas for everyone, for children, like play areas that encourage safe exploration together, marginalized a community by cultural reflection and gathering spaces for everyone. We can see this also by diverse activities like seating, accessibility, and engagement. Respecting culture sensitivity in public spaces involve understanding and respecting the diverse backgrounds of all community members. Sorry, just had the flu. Backgrounds of all community members. This principle ensures that design reflects local cultures, promotes respectful interactions, and creates environments that foster connection and inclusivity among users of various ethnicity and traditions. There is so many barriers that we can talk about it when we're talking about inclusivity in public spaces. The one comes the first minute to our mind as an architect is the physical barriers, because public spaces should deal with people with disabilities or difficulty in moving. So physical barriers such as poor walks or lack of ramps and inaccessible transport options. This should be addressed through design because this is crucial for creating inclusive environments that encourage all community members to engage and interact freely. Social and economic barriers. This actually explores the challenges of discrimination, language gaps, and activity cost that hinder access to public space. By identifying these barriers, we can create inclusive environments that welcome everyone, ensuring equality and opportunities for all community members. Community engagement. Community engagement is a key for success for inclusive public spaces through the community-driven design. And the community-driven design actually effectively addresses the needs of diverse groups by incorporating community feedback and cultural reflections. These spaces foster a sense of ownership, belonging, and vibrant interaction among all users. Economic empowerment. Supporting local businesses is crucial for fostering community growth and resilience. The revitalization of public spaces often leads to increased foot traffic, which benefits nearby shops and services, creating a vibrant economy that serves the diverse needs of community. Community engagement and co-design. The true inclusion begins with a co-creation. So you are not asking the community what you want or what you need. Actually, you are designing with the community to fulfill these needs together. So involving local community in planning and management, use participatory mapping, workshops, and temporary activation. Build ownership through co-management and maintenance partnerships. Promote equity in decision-making process. Strategies and outreach. Effective outreach is essential for fostering inclusive public spaces by implementing targeted strategies such as community workshops and collaboration with local organizations. Participatory design benefits. Engaging the community in the design process fosters ownership and connection to public spaces. This collaboration enhances social cohesion, ensuring diverse voices are heard. By incorporating feedback, designers and architects are tailored to meet the specific needs of all demographic and promote inclusivity. Policies and governance, and this is always the unmentioned very important element, because effective policies and the governance framework are essential for supporting inclusive design in public spaces. These structures ensure that community needs are met, resources are allocated wisely, and the ongoing evaluation foster an environment of continuous improvement and engagement. Management and stewardship. Design without management is like planning without planting without watering. So inclusive spaces require co-governance and shared programming. Users become caretakers through community events and stewardship. What are the different strategies that can we use for inclusive design as an architect? First of all, we need to know what is the cycle of inclusive design. So the inclusive design goes through 5 stages. First, you have to listen. So you need to build your design program by listening to the users, the co-design, the prototyping, the evaluation, and the maintenance. I'll have to go a bit faster because of the time constraint. So the designing the strategies are flexible spaces for diverse activities and users. Community engagement drives local input and ownership. Multifunctional areas promote social interaction and engagement with spatial layout enhance accessibility and flow. Effective circulation in public spaces and promoting environmental comfort for all users. The main challenges that the architect could possibly meet is budget constraint limits project scope and resources. Regulatory hurdles complicate approval and the execution process. Community resistance can impact the project acceptance and success. Maintenance issue challenges terms of sustainability of the spaces. Then we come to the best practices, and here I'd like to shed light on one of the most recent awarded winner, which is ISNA Revitalization Project that received the award of Aga Khan 2025. I'd like to highlight the inclusive part of community-led design in this project. So ISNA is an Upper Egypt city, a heritage town revived through inclusive design, implemented by Takwin, with local craftsmen, vendors, and residents, of course with the aid of local Egyptian government and international organizations. Project goal was that heritage is a living, inclusive economy. ISNA urban transformation, restore the heritage facades and shopfronts, upgrade public realm around the temple of Khanum, pedestrian-friendly market streets with improved lighting, and women and youth engage through culture events. The revitalization of historic ISNA it's actually reframed the conservation as a social infrastructure. Small cumulative interventions in market streets and courtyards like nodes paired with craft revival, micro enterprise support, and programming. The Aga Khan jury praised its bottom-up socially structured strategy and the way incremental acts reactivated historical spaces and local economies. Visitor number reportedly tripled, and hundreds of lasting jobs were created as crafts re-entered the public realm. The key inclusive strategy was community-led conservation and adaptive reuse of historic fabric, the economic revitalization, skills training, women-led enterprise, and the reactivation of public spaces, the markets, the Nile Corniche, and the cultural events. The social inclusion keys in the ISNA project is to begin with people, not with form, design through participation, embed economic inclusion, virtualized universal accessibility, heritage-led public space activation, built pride and belonging, build for climate comfort, design incrementally but systematically, plan for stewardship, not just construction, and measure and share impact. The ISNA social inclusion checklist is co-designed with local residents and artisans, economic inclusion, gender sensitive, sensitivity, public furniture and shaded seatings for all ages, heritage pride, and renew local identity. In conclusion, there is a checklist that we can use as an architect for community inclusion public spaces. We should ask ourselves, are entrances step-free? Are there tactical routes? Is seating valid? Is there shades and water? Are vendors integrated? Is the wayfinding readable and meaningful? And I think this is a common checklist we always use. But in addition, to assure the overall inclusivity, we should ask and we should look for community engagement, cultural continuity, economic inclusion, accessibility and safety, governance of the public space, sustainability of the project, monitoring, and crisis resilience. Final reflection, please ask yourself, does my city invite everyone to belong? Because inclusion is not a feature, it is a feeling. So I would like to end by a call for an action for architects to hold a better role as social leaders and innovators. I'm asking you that you play this role in shaping inclusive public spaces by embracing inclusive design principles. You can foster environments that welcome diversity, support community engagement, and enhances the quality of life for all citizens in urban settings. Here are the references. Thank you very much. You can reach out for me through email. You can send any questions. I would like to discuss this further with anyone through my LinkedIn, and you will have the post of UIA shared on my profile. You can post your questions, and I will respond, inshallah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Longpik. Yeah, if you have any question, just put in LinkedIn, as she mentioned to me. Okay. Right now it's Q&A sections. We are running out of time. I can see in the chat box there are two questions. There's several questions, and also yeah, Kasi, I see that you have a question. Yeah. Do you want to ask it directly?
Yeah, why not? Thank you, Yvonne. Well, let me thank all the speakers for their wonderful presentations. And while I was looking at the presentations, a few questions came up to my mind, but I don't think we have enough time for tonight to ask several questions to all the speakers. I just think I have a short question to Joseph, if you are listening to me. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. I have been to Hong Kong quite a few times, but I'm not really familiar with the city because every time I went there, I was accompanied by friends like you. So I did not have to check how the city was doing for general people. But my question to you is that you have rightfully explained the efforts of the city to kind of include everyone and each people in terms of mobility, in terms of spaces, in terms of transportation. But could you shed some light on the signage and the language a tourist or a citizen sees when he travels or visits Hong Kong? The reason I'm asking is that just last week I was in China, and I was in Kunming, Dali, and Lijian, one of the three of those very popular tourist places. But it was extremely hard for me to kind of navigate through the cities and interact with the people, or maybe order a food in the restaurant, because everything was in Chinese, and all I had to do is take the help from Google Translator. So I don't think those cities in China was inclusive, at least for the tourists. Could you shed some light on these issues in regards to Hong Kong? Thank you.
Thank you, Kazi, for the question. I think the difference is probably Hong Kong has been under the influence, just like Macau, under the influence of the British. And we come from very much a bilingual background, English and Chinese or Cantonese in our case. And all the signages, whether street signages or everything else, is usually bilingual. and even our official government forms, any application form from any department are bilingual. So you can either choose to fill it up in Chinese, Cantonese, or fill it up in English. So that's why I think it comes from that perspective. That's why our communication is probably easier, and even our signage on the road signage are bilingual. So I think that's the advantage of having that system in place for many, many years. And I can understand where you're coming from. The China at the moment, it's probably still catering for a lot of domestic tourists and not for foreigners as much, even though they love foreigners to come in like yourself. And even though I sometimes have problems communicating and reading things up there. So I think it takes time. It takes time, and cities need to be, in terms of communication, needs to be inclusive, needs to be encompassing every type of person, whether you're blind and deaf. It has to be able to communicate with different people with different abilities. And that's my short answer to your question. Thank you, Mr. Kazi.
Yeah, thank you, Joseph. Yeah, I just had one question. That's it. You can go on, Yvonne.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, I can see in the Q&A sections, Mary Chan has a question to Turkey. Yeah, so
Yes.
maybe Turkey also can see the question. It's talking about the housing that are built far away from the city center. What is the means of the transportation for the residents to the city center? Will they by
It's
car
not
or?
in,
Oh, can you see the question? Maybe I can repeat again. As in Q&A sections, the question from Mary is asking, you present the city center, right? And also the new building outside the city center. And then Mary's question is about what's the transportation, the residents travel, I mean, from the center to the outskirts. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot of types of transport. We have a train. It's a train, a tramway, and cars, and cars. And actually, we began to go by bicycle. It's a new bicycle and motors.
Okay. So I also have a question. Yeah. So Hong Kong is in Asia and Algeria is in Africa, but we both have some similarities. We also have colonial buildings and also the indigenous building and new building. Yeah. So we have some similarities. And in fact, what do you think about the accessibility, inclusions, cultural inclusions, and also, yeah, about these two, about your cities first, yes, your country, yeah. Is there any cultural inclusive that you can think of that share with us?
I think that we begin to think about the inclusive and resilient city, because our first preoccupation it was product a maximum houses. Maximum houses in our city. So housing for everyone involves more than just mass construction. And today we begin to think about a notion of inclusive. I think that we are not a city inclusive 100%. We are 20%, 30%.
Okay.
Because the politic of housing, it was to obtain and propose a house for all people with different categories. But this politic or this proposition, we have lost a design, an architectural design. especially in north of city.
Okay.
And
But what's the
actually, we study about a personalization of the housing.
what's the populations of Algeria?
Also, Algeria is situated is north of Africa, but it's north of Africa, yes, and it's we have a Mediterranean. It's a Mediterranean country, and we have a different culture. We have north of Algeria. It's a cosmopolitan people, and we have a middle population in the middle of Algeria, and we have a Saharian Algerian people. And these three forms of people have three different cultures and three different opinions of how using houses. And we have actually we work to promote identity, heritage, and cultural identity, because we are 80% autochthon people, Berber autochthon people. And we have three or four a lot of methods of construction.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
welcome. Welcome.
thank you. Yeah, Joseph, one quick question. Yeah, you have described Hong Kong in the urban landscape and also accessibility, inclusive of the city. And how about the social and cultural of Hong Kong? The inclusive of social and also the cultural. Do you think we should improve it, or anything that you can mention about it?
I think there certainly is room for improvement in terms of the social cultural. I think Hong Kong, with its historical background, with sort of British and Chinese background, the culture is pretty much a mixed one, and it's trying to be an international city. It's always trying to say Hong Kong, the Asia's international city. So the culture is a cultural mix here. We do have very much a multicultural residents here, and I think we do mix fairly well. And inclusion part of it, I think it's a lot less discrimination in a way against another culture and as another an area. But in terms of accessibility, I think there's room for improvement. Socially, we're doing fine. I think we live in fairly good harmony. We are trying to strive for a better life, better living standard for Hong Kong people. But in terms of physical accessibility, we still need improvement. And in many ways, access can be improved, as mentioned, like communication accessibility for places that needs to be improved. And hopefully, I think through the improvement of the environment, through inclusion, through accessibility, our tourists, our 60 million tourists that comes in annually, will equally enjoy our place and not feel excluded because of communication, of they can't read the menu, etc. They can't use the buses, etc. So that is also a huge economic benefit if your place is more inclusive and you make people feel more comfortable by coming and visiting our place and spending the money. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Well, we have a little bit just over the time, but right now I try to just a really quick roundup of the speaker and the sharing tonight. Although Dr. Lumbri is not here, but one item or one sentence that he mentions that I believe it can round up the sharing of tonight is that the inclusive is not a feature, it's a feeling. That means if we have sufficient or good accessibility, cultural or social inclusive have been done in our city, and then we will feel really happy, and it should be a really healthy, happy, and good city for living. So we are working towards on this feeling. Yeah, I hope this can round up tonight's sharing. Okay, so how about Cassie? Do you have anything to supplement or?
I don't think we have any further issues to discuss. We have had enough of informations and beautiful photos and datas. We still have to process and to learn more when we think about it. So we come to know about three cities in the world which are pretty populous. A lot of people are leaving, and all of them have got long stretch of history and tradition, and all of them are kind of struggling to preserve their traditions and bring back the heritage and melt with the modern technology and modern pace of living, the speed of living, and the computer age and automation. So three of these have got something in common, that those are trying to blend the old and new. And we always do respect the heritage and tradition, and we have to adopt the technology and move forward. So these examples will certainly kind of help us to look at other cities and how to get going in terms of ensuring resilient habitat for the whole planet. That's about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cassie. But I just see two questions from in the chat box in the Q&A sections. Maybe we can also see any speaker can answer it or not. We can drop it down. Yeah. The first one is many of older people, and not only, are digital illiterate. They can't manage digital device, checking airport navigation, banking, communication, etc. As long as I remember, we usually deal with the classical terms of physical disability. So we agree to include within our topics and documentation the digital illiteracy as another one disability add to invisible disabilities. So any comments on this one?
Perhaps I could answer to my friend Saturis from Greece. Thank you for listening and posing an interesting question. Absolutely right. More and more things are going the digital way. That's why I thought it's a good KPI for a community to see how inclusive we are. I think you're absolutely right. Even myself, I find it difficult getting through everything now. It's going through a digital environment and everyday things. And I don't know about in Algeria or in Bangladesh. Nowadays you go to a restaurant, you expect to scan a QR code in order to order your meals, and then even expect to use your own phone to pay the bill, through electronic means. So all this is certainly for older people. Many older persons in Hong Kong may not even own a telephone, mobile apps, and all this sort of thing. It's very difficult. So I think it's an area we need to look at for really true inclusion. We need to be including everybody, older person who made different difficulties. And I just want to bring out one area, the people that I'm focusing on recently is what we call the neurodivergent, the neuro-inclusive design for people with intellectual or cognitive disability. And we need to include them into society. Otherwise, we are excluding a huge proportion of people who are in need of communication or in need of our help. So I think agree that we need to look at that. It's an additional dimension in order to what we call the digital divide, as they call it, the digital gap. We need to close that up and to make things more equitable and make the society more inclusive. Thank you, Yvonne.
Well, thank you, Joseph. We will not make our tonight's sharing into the written documents, but we will put the video on the internet, so we can share it later. It's kind of the documentation too. Okay, another question, how can urban planners can assist and ensure that marginalized voices are heard and integrate into decision-making in the inclusive city planning concept? Who can help on to respond? Turkey, do you have
Could you
any
get-
idea?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
I think that it's a moment to promote the committee of a mini city. This is a person. It's between a political person and a civil person. A committee of a city. They must be joined on between the two parts, and they must help this marginalized person. In Algeria, it's begun. We have in a mini city or a committee person. It's the institute. Can be helps this marginalization person.
Well, I can see Joseph raise a hand.
Yes.
Joseph,
I'd like to ask our Secretary General Roy, who stayed with us all through. Thank you for your presence here. He's actually an expert in cities and urban planning, etc. How do you see the way forward for community architecture and to be inclusive from the human rights perspective in future cities? What's your views on this? Thank you.
thank you.
Well, I think in these cities that are very subject to tourism and population fluctuations, I think there are different kind of situations, because in the case, for example, of Venice, it seems like even though the local population is quite low, that there are certain kind of struggles that the population makes to preserve its rights against the tourists or the overcrowding of the tourists. And I think that is really interesting, because everyone is saying, almost no one lives in Venice, but people do still have a voice. That means that the democratic system is really resilient, and it doesn't matter that there are not a lot of residents, but the governance is concerned about securing the quality of life for those people. Whereas, for example, in Macau, we are a lot of people because we're such a small city. We have over 30 million tourists per year in average, and a population of 600. It's below 700,000. So, but it's quite big population for a small territory, and it's very hard to secure certain rights and provisions for the local population. You remember some years ago that we ran out of milk powder and eggs and those kind of things, because the tourists were crazy for egg tarts and then for milk powder and then for this, and then we couldn't get a seat in a restaurant, we couldn't park the car, and it became very overwhelming. But yet we are not ready, and our governance is really not ready to understand the differences, because I think the democratic discussion is not invested in thinking about these things, these fluctuations. So it cannot not be always about business and securing the economic system for the sustainability of governance. It has to be about the looking at maintaining the quality of life of locals.
Yeah, thank you, Roy. Yeah, I think it's really good that urban planner can also think about how to assist the the planning for the inclusive, and I also think of landscape architect also can help on it too. So it's about time, yeah, to round up everything, and also thank you our secretary general, right, to attend and for these sections, and also co-chair Cassie, and also the speakers. Yeah, thanks a lot for attending these sections, and we will put the video record in the online. Yeah, you can review again. Yeah, thank you. So round up here.
Thank you, everyone.
Joseph,
Yeah.
bye-bye.
Thank you.
Take
Thank
care.
you
Take
all.
care.
Okay,
take care.
Kasi, you have a lot of work to do to maintain community architecture and not becomes international. Maintain the community. That's what we're trying to do, right? Okay. Thank you very much, everybody, for your
Thank
attendance.
you. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Bye-bye.